Hi there, it's Jo here from Creative Empowerment, and I am here with a different video today. I am going to do my collection, and I've spread out my Oracle decks and I'm really excited. It's kind of like feeling lots of joy, excitement and happiness bringing this video to you. Feels like I'm playing, and I'm a Capricorn, so very serious nature usually. So it feels really nice to get to play with my Oracle decks, and it's really cool getting them all out. Because normally I don't have them all out in a row or a line like I have over there. These are the Oracle decks that I have at present and that I'm using in both my pick a card readings and private readings. I have had many more, but I've either given them away, donated them, or can't even remember where some of them have gone. So these are the ones that I have currently, and I'm really excited to show you what I've got and to talk you through some of them, and you may decide that they're some that you'd like to have in your Oracle collection. So get a cup of tea, have a seat, and let's get into it. And I'm going to pan through all of the decks set out. So I'm super excited about this video that I'm making today. Feels like I'm a giant kid, and yeah, getting really excited about showing you all my decks. Okay, so I'm going to start from the top left-hand corner with the Oracle decks. And the first one is actually not mine, but it's one that I've bought my daughter, and she asked me if I wanted to put it in. So I said yes. It is the Magical Unicorn deck by Doreen Virtue, 44 card deck and guidebook. And this one is perfect for kids. So if you have kids, or if you would like a gift for children, younger people, then this is a gorgeous one for them. It's not all unicorns. It's got a beautiful gilt on the side there, and the cards are really very simple, and the themes are really nice ones, like drink more water, you'll know in the morning, love, imagine. So the themes are really soft and gentle. Love from your parents, definitely yes. Exercise. And I was introduced to these cards a long time ago, and my daughter liked looking at my cards, and I thought that it'd be nice for her to have some of her own. So these aren't cards that I have used in my readings, but they're included in my collection today because they're part of our family, I suppose. And they're Doreen Virtue cards. She has a lot of decks, and there'll probably be people out there who are divided about Doreen Virtue because she no longer wants to be part of this community, New Age community or spiritual community in this essence or this way. So the next deck that I have here, and I will have timestamps linked to all of the decks. This deck is actually one of my favourites. It's a Colette Baron Reid deck, and it is Wisdom of the Avalon. Here is the lid of the box, and I am quite drawn to Avalon and that time frame, King Arthur and the Knights of Avalon. It is a beautiful deck. It is one that is quite old for me. It does have gilding on the side, but it's kind of wearing because of use. It is one that I use a lot. I do like the chalice on the back. I think it's evocative of the time, and the Celtic braid sort of work down the side there. And then the imagery. So there's quite a lot of different types of cards in this one. There are sacred journey markers. There are messengers, another sacred journey marker. There's more messengers. There's the animal guides of Avalon. Now these I use in readings all the time. In my pick a card readings, you will see these showing up a lot. I really find them very helpful. I relate to them really well. Again, we have sacred journey markers. The sacred journey markers, for me, are probably the most challenging cards in this whole deck. They're usually very landscape orientated, and sometimes they open up for me and other times they don't. There is also some general terms, clearing house, releasing emotional baggage. We have some numerology there, or numbers. There's often quite a lot of symbols, and I really like the symbols in this deck. I find them really quite helpful. They kind of give me some extra information. There are the guides of fairies too, and the fairies in this deck probably aren't my favourite, but here we go. I like these cards. I like the letting go. Like some of the landscape ones do challenge me, and then other ones, I love. And this is all about feelings and emotions. I think this is a deck, one of Colette Baron-Reid's first decks, and in her first decks, it's kind of like she was and is awesome. And this deck it really speaks to me. I love the symbolism of this deck, and I think that, and it's got a really nice structure, the way she has structured it. She has the journey markers, the animal guides, the fairies, the messengers, and yeah, so there's a lot, and there's, the Lady of the Lake, absolute truth, courage, self-respect and responsibility. There's a lot of evocative imagery, of that sort of Knights of the Grail, that sort of thing, omens and messages. The guidebook for this particular deck is quite a good one. Colette Baron-Reid is fabulous when it comes to guidebooks. These ones are probably have the least written in them, but they're also quite good and quite succinct in what she says, and I don't think you really need that much more. So I do like the guidebooks. The first one that I talked about, the Magical Unicorns, let me have a look at that. The Magical Unicorns has a guidebook from Dorrit and Virtue, and it shows the card and then a little bit of text, which is quite helpful if you're giving these to a young person. The next cards along are some of my very first. So these cards, when I was first starting out on my spiritual journey, I was frightened of everything. And I was, I shouldn't laugh because, I was keeping myself safe, but I was in a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, a lot of those sorts of things. And these are Louise Hay's Wisdom Cards by Louise Hay. So there's the box. They may be even in a different box, I don't know now. It's a 64 card deck. And these are the type of cards that you draw from daily. And I used to pick a card, and I find that Louise Hay, one of the leaders in this spiritual community for a very, very long time. And I found that I would pick one of these for the day. I do not use yesterday's mental garbage to create tomorrow's experiences. I create fresh new thoughts and a fresh new life. And I found that these simple, I release the past with ease and I trust the process of life. And I'd put this either in my car, in my house, and I would use it as a talisman for the day, as a set the intention of my day. And those cards there are, they're really instrumental for me. So I keep them even though I haven't picked them up in such a long time. So they're still in my collection. And these are Stephen D. Farmer's Power Animal Oracle cards. Some good film work happening here. Stephen D. Farmer's Power Animal Oracle cards. And for me, these are quite new. They're really old cards from Hay House, as was the Louise Hay cards. They were from Hay House, as were the unicorn cards. And these cards here are new for me. I've wanted these for a long time, and I think when I got them that I probably didn't need them, which is why Spirit kind of told me not to get them a long, long time ago. They're kind of pretty basic, and I've used them in a reading now, but I realise that I don't know. I don't know. Like, I'm going to use them and incorporate them into my readings, but I think I'm going to. They're not going to be my favourites, and at some point I might gift them on. I'm not really sure. I'll see, because, like I said, they're kind of new to me, and I haven't used them much, but they're easy to work with. I can see that because they have a very basic information on the card, and the guidebook has a small amount of, or it's not that small, but it's kind of simple. But a good deck for someone who's starting out and you would like to learn a bit more about power animals. A good deck to start out with. So this is an old deck of mine, Flowers of the Night Oracle by Sherilyn Darcy, and in Rockpool Publishing. I really like Sherilyn's decks. It's the very first one I bought of hers, but I do have another one. The cardstock is good. It's a bit plasticky for my liking, but it's easy to use. So Sherilyn is the author and illustrator of these images, and I think they're woodcuts or lino cuts, and then she's hand coloured them. But I love the back. It's really simple but interesting. And then the images themselves, again, they've got that really dark palette. And they're all flowers of the night. And then she's depicted them sometimes with other animals. They have a word down the bottom, and then usually the plant as well. So restore is the sort of information that's helpful at times, and then the plant's name, and often there may be moons or time or cycles involved in some of the imagery. I did find this imagery really a bit challenging to begin with, because I don't really know why I did, but I also found that it spoke to me. So there was a bit of both happening there, was the ability to find it interesting but also challenging. And some decks are like that. They are more challenging to use than others. But I do love this deck. I haven't used it in a long time, but I did use it a lot when I first got it, and for some time. It's a really lovely deck, and now I'm going to go to this middle one, and then I'm going to go to the bottom layer, simply because for space wise. So this is another Hay House one, and it is Kyle Gray's Angel Prayers, and here is the box. Now this wasn't this is my first Kyle Gray deck. I think I have just bought another one recently. I do like Kyle Gray and his angels. I don't love the imagery of this deck, but I do like the messages, and I like working with it for specific things. So it's really kind of simplistic images, and when I say that, I'm not judging it or picking on it, but they're very bright and sort of hard-edged images, computer graphic type things. But there are cards, and there are times when this deck is really useful, and I identify with the messages and the imagery, and there are times when it doesn't talk to me. So, interesting the way decks can do that. And sometimes it is the imagery that's doing that, and sometimes it's the energy of the two together. But yes, I do use it quite a lot. It's a good cardstock. But like I said, it's one that I use for specific things and specific things only. In a pick a card reading, it's quite good because it brings in a different dimension, that sort of angelic dimension. And these cards I absolutely love. Dreamtime reading cards by Laura Bowen, connecting with ancient spirit and nature of Australia. And I will show you inside this. One of the wonderful things about Rockpool guidebooks is the colour, which I love. I do love how they reproduce that colour, and then one page, which I think is always enough. And the imagery of these cards is divine. So I'll just show you the cards now. The back image is a simple image, and it's in the design of the cards. I love, love, love these cards. At times I find the messages flow, and then there are other times when the messages kind of become a bit more challenging. We have, a word up the top, 34, the sun, and then fertility, so another word down here. And, there is a very detailed guidebook. So and I think Laura Brown talks about her own experiences growing up, which I think is a really lovely aspect to these cards. And some of the images just are really evocative, like this one here. They really talk to you and you can kind of get lost in them, and I love that. And some are just really powerfully strong. So yeah, imagery, love, love, love. Very simple and easy to use. And the colours too, bright colours, gives you lots when you're using them in a reading, and particularly if you're using them in a multi spread where you've got different oracle cards, then you can look at all the colours and things like that. So those Dreamtime reading cards are really one of my favourites. I don't use them all the time. They're very specific when I do want to use them. And I think, but they are really one that I love. I think this is my oldest deck that I do have. Doreen Virtue's Archangel Michael Oracle cards, a 44 card deck and guidebook, again from Hay House. And these have got a nice gilt on the side of them too. And if I haven't mentioned it, it's because they don't have it. These deck, again, when I was talking before about those cards in the background there, about how much I used to be in fear. So I needed to call on the angels a lot, and I felt really comfortable with Archangel Michael, which is first card, Let Go of Fear Now, which is why I bought these cards. And, they have a little prayer on them. They're quite nice. I don't use them terribly much anymore, but I do always still come back to them. So particularly in times where, I'm not feeling that great, they're really good for boosting confidence about fear-based subjects, because Archangel Michael is a great person or a great angel to call on, when you're having fears and doubts in your life. Imagery, it's okay. I don't love it. I don't dislike it either. I think it's quite a collection. I'm not sure if it's all the same artist or not. But I found that, some of the imagery is really, really easy to establish, the connection and the message with. But I think, this deck is an old deck, and I think that kind of shows with the imagery. It's not terribly modern in its look, things like that. So it is definitely a much older deck, and one that I don't use as much anymore. Occasionally I will use it. The Crystal Medicine Oracle by Rochelle Charman. And this is a Rockpool publication too. and it's a different shape. Obviously, it's a square, you can see, and I really like this guidebook. Again, we've got color, but it's a different. It looks like a recycled stock. We get quite a lot of information. There's a ceremony. There's talk about the medicine involved, the crystal, and I quite like this. I quite like the imagery. I quite like everything about this. In fact, and when I first got it, I was so excited. And it's round, so it's the only round deck that I do have. But I am looking at getting a different, another round deck in the future. And these cards, the themes are really universal. There's some really good messages and themes in here. So you have crystals, you have a theme, and then sometimes either another theme come up plus numbers. So the deck is based on crystals, and a lot of the crystals in here, I haven't had that much to do with. So one of the things that's great about this deck is that you learn as you're going. But I find that the imagery is really interesting. The concepts that it kind of explores, again, there's a sort of shamanic basis to it, which I quite like. There's some really, there's all the themes are kind of explored here, I think, or there's a good distribution between all the themes. Yeah, it's a really nice deck to use. I think she's done a really great job of this deck, and I'm pretty sure there's quite a few of her decks. I've seen them, but I haven't used them. And here we have another Kyle Gray Angels and Ancestors Oracle card, and this is a new one for me. And I like this stock. It's a matte stock, but I haven't used it much. It reminds me a little bit of one of the Colette Baron-Weed decks that I have, and this is a Hay House deck. So they're both published by the same people. So on the back it has a really nice little symbol there, or illustration, which I quite like. I like the colour of the background, and there's no gilding on the sides. And then the imagery I really quite enjoy too. Lots of different imagery about ancestors, and they're quite evocative images. I really do quite like them. The artwork is really quite beautiful. But as I said, these are new cards for me, so I'm still learning this deck or being introduced to it. I love that card, Direction Guardian, Choose Your Path. And then there are these cards here that are different and more symbolic of different things. But yeah, so that's a new one for me, and I'm still getting used to it, and I really do enjoy it. The next one I'm going to show you is The Goddess and Sirens by Stacey DeMarco, illustrated by Jimmy Manton. And this was one that I was sort of not gifted, kind of gifted. It's not one that I would choose to buy. I don't really know why. This is published by Blue Angel Publishing, so another Australian company. And I don't particularly like the back of the card. These images I find challenging, and that's my stuff. A lot of people may or may not, but I think it's one of the things that there's not a lot of colour variation, although the camera's picking this up beautifully. Like, it's actually more muted in tones than that gives the impression of. They're they're very sturdy cards. They're about the same size as most of these other cards here. And I am learning to enjoy these cards. So at first I think I've had and it's really interesting because that the way that the camera is picking that up is actually the colours are popping out, whereas they're actually more subdued for my naked eye. Let's put it that way. But this is a really great deck for learning more about goddesses and sirens. Like Stacey DeMarco has done a lot of oracle decks, and I've had a play with a lot of them, but they're not ones that I've bought. But having said that, like, she does a really fabulous guidebook. They're really detailed, lots and lots of information about the particular goddess. Symbols, shadow sides, meditations, and sometimes I think there is a ritual. So very, very detailed and really good for learning more about particular themes. So one for me that I'm learning to enjoy more than I thought I would. Let's put it that way. And these are the medicine cards by Jamie Sams and David Carson, and these are really kind of very old, by St. Martin's Press. Illustrations by Angela Wernicke. And this is a really old deck. Not one of my first by any means, but a really great book about animal spirit medicine. Couldn't get that out. And it's a really fabulous, really detailed look. You know, even just for the book alone, it's fabulous. But I do love using these cards. They feel very sacred to me. They have a really uninteresting back. They're very flimsy cardstock, but it's actually really easy to use. They're quite plasticky too, which I'm pretty sure the old ones wouldn't have been like that. But they're sort of more in the style of a tarot card, the shape of them. They're really simple imagery, but they're fantastic to use. I do absolutely love using these, and the messages that these cards bring through are amazing, really deep, and they're kind of like, if you're using the guidebook, you know, it's fantastic, but even then, when you sort of jump off and go into the imagery, you know, through your third eye, the information that comes, or my connection to these images, it's just amazing, because a lot of these animals are American, and while American culture is, you know, has been all over the world, some of the animals aren't common to me, but I get the messages so well, and even with such a simple image or a small image, and all of the little sort of hanging objects change, but they don't all change. And occasionally, if you do a whole reading with these, you'll find that you may get 3 cards that all are the same, and I find that really interesting, and there's a message in that too. So yeah, these are fantastic cards. I love using them, and the guidebook is a fantastic resource. So they are very, very interesting cards. So this is another deck that I was gifted, in a sense. The Ascended Masters Oracle cards by Doreen Virtue, and it was a deck that I wasn't thinking I was going to enjoy. We've got the old gilding on the side there. I really like the back of these cards. I'm not sure if it's because of that beautiful high colouring of that gold. Like, it just is it's a happy colour. It's really a nice colour. They're really interesting cards for me. The reason being is that they actually explore some topics that, I don't know, probably that I didn't have in my collection, because I have quite a lot of angels and guides type things, or I have had at different stages. But this is quite a good one because it has a lot of covers a lot of different topics. You know, you've got Ganesh, you've got Merlin, Serapis Bey, Paul the Venetian, Archangel Michael, White Tara, and then there's a lot of these other, like Lug, who I'd never ever heard of. So it just, it covers some things that I didn't have in my collection. And so it comes in handy, this deck, for me. Ocean, a lot of things that I hadn't been, I suppose, exposed to. And as with Hay House decks, they all have a very easy to use guidebook. This one's really simple, and I think I do love the complicated ones at times, but I think sometimes they go overboard. And this, the simplicity of this deck and the guidebook is really helpful for me. Some decks I don't even want to look at the guidebook because it's so extensive. Now, this is a deck that I was so excited about buying. It's another Colette Baron Reid, another Hay House. It is the Spirit Animal Oracle. And I must admit, when I did get it, I was a little bit disappointed because I love the wisdom of Avalon and the wisdom of the Oracle and the wisdom of the map. I think that's what that one's called. But this one, while I've grown to love it more, I was not as excited when I got it. I think there's so many cards in this deck, and while they are beautiful, that they're really beautiful, that they're at times they really speak to me. But I think I have some other animal spirit decks that speak to me more, and these ones are probably too beautiful, and there's not enough substance, which is, having said that, there are times when I really, in a reading, these cards really, really talk to me. So I'm not going to dismiss them and not use them, because there are times when they call out and they want to be used, and that's a really powerful card. But yeah, as animal decks go, it's really heavy. They're really thick. The backing's quite nice. I don't love the matte. I used to like the matte, but I don't really anymore. And like I said, the imagery for me, it's really pretty, but it doesn't do, it's not what I was expecting from the deck, I think. The guidebook, as always with Colette Baron Reid, while it's black and white and small, it's really detailed. Or when I say really detailed, it's got enough detail. She does an oracle message and then a protection message. And, that's kind of all you need. But like I said, it's one to use sometimes, but it's not my favourite animal deck. So now I've got here, these were ones that I picked up really a long time ago. Again, more of a, words and things they're called destiny cards, and they're advice cards. And really that's all I can say. I can't see who they've been made by. They're just called destiny cards. And that's all. And, you'll probably find lots of different ones of these. And these can be really handy at times. In pick a card readings, I do use them to draw as extra bits of information for the reading. Just a simple sort of thing there. Now, these are some of my favourites of all time. We have another Colette Baron Reid deck here. And again, it's one of the older Colette Baron Reid decks. Wisdom of the Oracle Divination cards, a 52-card deck and guidebook. And this, along with the map ones, which we'll get onto later, are some of my absolute favourites. The back, as I've watched some other ones of these videos, and they're not the back is not the greatest imagery, but what is good about it is you can't tell whether it's upside down or not when you're reading. And then the imagery itself is absolutely beautiful. I love it. You have sort of surrealistic images, that usually I think nearly all of them have a spirit in the picture. They have a one word or a couple of word, information on the card. There is a number on the card, which I find helpful. The imagery is really evocative and easy to jump off from. And I find the imagery of this deck to be just beautiful, easy to read, easy to connect with. Just fabulous. And Colette Baron-Reid, when she is at, in these decks, is at her height of brilliantness, good word. And I think, she was really connected with the artist who did these with her. These cards are just, I don't know, they're just spot on for me. Every time I use them, they make sense. I have a strong connection to them. They're easy for me to use. What more can I say? They're some of my favourites. And I don't use them for every reading because I might get sick of them, but so might other people. And I don't want to wear them out because, like I said, they are some of my favourites. The guidebook is fabulous. It has an essential meaning, the oracle's message, a relationship message, a prosperity message, a protection message. So, if you want to go full bore into this, you can. If you are learning, this is a great deck to learn with, as is the Wisdom of Avalon deck. Colette Baron-Reid is fabulous, learning about working with oracle cards, and she's one of the people that I've, learnt from over time with watching her and seeing how she does things. So a really great deck to use. This is another one of my favourites, and this is the Druid Plant Oracle by Philip and Stephanie Carr-Gomm and illustrated by Will Worthington. And this is an amazing, amazing deck. I love it. I love it. I love it. The guidebook is very, very extensive. I've just finished doing a unboxing of another deck of theirs that I have, or that I've just got. It's so extensive. It has lots of information. Not too much information, but really, really interesting. Or I find this really interesting. I'm really interested in, traditions of working with plants and plant medicine. And I have a real sort of draw to Druidic culture and knowledge, as, and symbology. I find it that I love it. And the cards themselves are massive, really hard to hold in your hand. They're so big. I do have small hands. The back is really simple. It's a very simple back. The stock is not the thickest, but it's actually kind of nice. It's a good weight. I quite like it. The imagery is to die for. It is some of my favourite card imagery, because I feel like I get taken or transported there when I look at these images, because there's so much for your eye to work with, and all these little tiny messages for you to have a look at while you're using these cards. They talk about seasons, about the different moon phases. They have all this Druidic culture that you can learn about when you look at the book, but you don't need to look at the book to use these cards. In fact, I don't know the cards terribly well, but I have an agreed upon way of reading these cards when I use them, and I just love them. I do. I really, really love these cards, and I think I might do a walkthrough of these cards too, because I do love them so much. But yeah, these cards are a little bit more than your average deck. I can't remember the price of them, but yeah, they're a bit more pricey. And here we have another Hay House deck. So I have a lot of Hay House decks. This is another one of my first decks, and as you can see, I was very into angels, still am. Still love the angels, but was very drawn to angels. And Doreen Virtue felt like a very, very kind of a safe place, I suppose, with her angels. These cards have got a nice, short, simple message. Very good for a beginner. Really easy to use. Gentle messages generally. And as you can see, again, I like the back. I think it's the bright gold. I think, gold is such a gorgeous, bright, happy kind of back. Oh, and then we have clear cognizance on the which is the symbol of the back there. But we cover quite a few different topics in this deck. The symbology and the graphics obviously are much more old-fashioned, and I don't mean that in a derogatory sense. It's just that they're a completely different time frame that these were made, but I still do use them quite a bit. But as only part of a reading, I probably wouldn't use them for a whole reading anymore. But at the time when I first got them, they were, some of my favourites, and some of the imagery is absolutely beautiful. Even though, this idea, I don't quite like it, but it does give you, somewhere to go from in the beginning. It talks about the angel. So it gives you something when you're learning as a place to start with these cards. So a really good deck for beginners. But like I said, Doreen Virtue is a little bit problematic in that she doesn't really want people to use the tools of divination. Anyway, I'm not going to go there. But the next deck is one of my favourites of all time. So this deck is one of my favourites of all time. The Wild Unknown Animal Spirit Guidebook by Kim Krans. And I love, 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 love this deck. Similar to Cheryl and Darcy, I love these decks because the person that has made them is the author and the illustrator. And I find that to be, you're getting the whole picture from one person. And it doesn't have to be that way at all, because Colette Baron-Reid does amazing decks. And then it's not her imagery, but she works really closely with the illustrator with her most successful decks. Anyway, get on to this one. So these decks are animal spirit guidebooks. And you can see I've got quite a lot of animal spirit guide decks, but I do really enjoy working with them. I find the animals talk to me, really well, and I have a strong connection to them. There's my business card. But yeah, the guidebook is fantastic. Like, Kim has given you a couple of keywords to use. She's written her explanation. She's talked about what it looks like when it's in balance, when it's out of balance, and how to bring it back into balance. There's also sort of there are earth ones, there are fire, all the elements are there, plus spirit. And I won't go into it, but I might also do not an unboxing, but a walkthrough of this, because it is one of my favourites. Love, love, love. The cards are smaller. They're probably the smallest ones that I have. And they're so easy to use with my little hands. The cards are really easy to hold in your hand, easy to shuffle. For me, with my small little hands that I have, easy to shuffle. And amazing, amazing imagery. So the imagery is just awesome. Love them. They speak to me, and I'm pretty sure they speak to most people who see them. I love the black and white with the colour editions. I love her use of the symbol to sort of give you a suit. I love the typography, or the handwritten typography. they're amazing. They work really, really well in a reading. The imagery gives you so much. And Kim, I love what Kim talks about in the guidebook. She wants you to take, to jump off from what she's given you. She doesn't want you to use the guidebook and things like that. She wants you to use your intuition with the cards, and that's what they're all about for me. Some of my favourites, again, I have quite a lot of favourites. Can't be helped when you're playing and working with the things that you actually, just love. It can't be helped that you've got lots of favourites. And this is another one of my favourites, the Sacred Power Reading Cards by Anna Stark. And when I first got these cards, I was in awe of them. Another Rockpool publication. Again, so we've got the beautiful colour imagery, and then we have the explanation. We also have a heading. We have some numerology. We have sort of like a one-liner to explanation. These cards are beautiful. They are highly evocative when you're using them. They really take you places, and that's some of my favourite cards are the types of ones where that is the case. So these cards, you can use these, you can use all of them to just pick one card a day. But some of these cards really draw you in. The colours are amazing. The symbols, there's dark and light. There's a lot of things covered in these cards, and I feel that some of the cards are quite restrictive in the themes that they talk about, whereas this deck covers a lot of things. There's some simple things like change, not that change is simple by any means, but then you have a lot of sort of higher vibrational stuff. And there seems to be a lot of celestial energy in these cards too that comes across to me anyway. And I love using them. I love using them in a reading. Yeah, they're divine. They're big cards again, another set of big cards, but I love using them. I'm not using them as much as I used to because I probably overuse them because they also have a beautiful back, which I didn't explore. They have a lovely back. I love that back. It's soft. And it's got the Flower of Life on it, which is beautiful. These are a little set of self-mastery cards from the Brahma Kumaris. And I do like using these, and see if I put them out a little bit further, because they give you a nice little verse or, some information, and they can add to a reading nicely. Also, they're great for personal use, when you're having a really stuck day. I have them in a little bowl and I pick from them. Humility. I am the actor who is unmasked. I see that the reality is that my gifts and talents aren't mine. I hold them in trust for the benefit of the world. As a master, I no longer need to prove myself. And I find that those messages are, spot on for what I need at that time. So, yeah, really some of my well-used tools, those ones. So these next ones aren't terribly old for me. The Soul's Journey. Now, really interesting. I've never opened this guidebook. I don't think. Maybe I've looked up one thing once, but I did like the mandalas that are on this in this deck. I think it's a Hay House deck. I can't see the box right now. It looks like a Hay House deck, but it does have a decent amount of information in there. It's not too much, it's not too little. So, if you wanted to use the guide deck, you certainly could. Yeah, they are published by Hay House. The back of the cards, I think, is kind of terrible. It's actually probably the ones that, besides the Jamie Sams ones, I think it's probably the one that I like the least. But, never mind. But I do enjoy using these cards because I love these mandalas. The mandalas and the colours that are used really, really talk to me. I find that I am able to get a lot of information from the colours, from the shapes, the movement, there's a whole, and then you, of course, before you even look at those, you've got some words to help you as well, forgiveness, and I find that this is enough information for me to use with these cards. But if you wanted to explore these cards a bit better and pick a card a day, and then look at the deeper message, I'm sure that they would give you even more. But for my purposes and what I use them for, I find them to be really helpful in a reading. The cardstock is quite nice. Whoop, dropping them. And they cover so many concepts and themes, and that's one of the reasons why I really like using them. They're really quite provocative too, with some of the things that they cover. So yeah, I really enjoy these. And did I say who they were from? I probably didn't. The Soul's Journey from James Van Prague. So they're the only ones that I have from him. And the one that fell down was Growth. And I feel like I kind of needed that message. So thank you. Now these are one of my newest decks. And I've just finished doing an unboxing of these ones, and so I haven't used them at all, but I've included them today just because they are a part of my collection and they are ones that I am about to explore. And just like the plant oracle that I showed you before, they have a really extensive guidebook that looks like it's, if you're really interested, and as I am with animal oracles and also with Druidic tradition, then, it might be something you're interested in. But these cards, again, they're quite big for my hands in particular. Simple background and then beautiful, beautiful imagery. There are 4 dragons, and then the rest of the imagery is all from the animals of the Druids and that period of time. I love the borders around these cards. I love, love, love the imagery by Will Worthington. I'm yet to use them because I literally did an unboxing before, but I can see already that it's got these messages for you to take notice of while you're doing a reading with these cards. And yeah, I just love them. I love how as the artwork in these images is really contained in the 4 edges. Like the actual artwork is really a joy to look at. And so for me, I'm an art teacher. And so for me, the imagery is just spot on, and it's this type of thing to draw me right in. And for me, that is the type of thing that's going to allow all of your senses to start moving, flowing, and enable you to work with them really, really well. So yeah, loving these cards. Can't wait to actually use them. So I'm going to use them later on for myself. Now the next deck, wow. Here we come to another one of my absolute favourites. Again, another Colette Baron-Reid. So, and as you can see, I love, love, love Colette Baron-Reid. The Enchanted Map Oracle cards, man, I think these unlock a different door. So if you haven't got these, depending on the kind of the other decks you have, they're fabulous. They really are fabulous. Before I'll show you the guidebook. And as I said before, with Colette Baron, she's really good at the beginning. She talks to you about how to use the cards, which is fabulous. There's an upright and a reversed meaning for the cards. There's also numerology. And this imagery, I think it's the same. I thought it was the same artwork, and perhaps it is. I'm pretty sure I watched something recently and she was talking about how she's used the same artist for all her decks, even though the imagery seems quite different. That image on the back there, while it may not be the most exciting, for me it's actually it kind of, again, I just want to say it unlocks a door. And I don't really even understand why I'm saying that. It's stupid, but I love this imagery. It's interesting. Again, it kind of opens doors for you. Field of Dreams, and there's all these beautiful unopened eggs that the fairies are playing around. It's really evocative, you know. There's a lot of sorry, not great shot for you. It's really evocative. It's atmospheric. So much is happening. Not like the other cards that we just looked at all, you know, like, whereas the artwork there is very three-dimensional and very much taking you into a place. This is very two-dimensional, but lots of information still. This used to be probably one of my most hated cards, this and Ghostlands, because I kept getting them forever and a day. And yeah, that... But I think that's when you read for yourself too much and you keep getting the same cards because you're not listening. That's probably what that's about. But yes, some beautifully evocative cards. And I think one of the lovely things about these cards is I always see something different. And I find that to be really quite magical. A really beautiful deck. And if you haven't got these in your collection, you know, depending on the type of person you are, these are fabulous to work with. Great in a reading, absolutely fabulous in a reading. There's numerology there. Talisman, that's the message I keep getting at the moment, and a ladder, so some things for me to take notice of. But one of my favourite decks. This is another Colette Baron Reid deck that is brand new for me. One that when I first looked at it, I was not that impressed with. So it's Oracle of the Seven Energies by Colette Baron Reid, and I must say that the way these cards are set into seven energies, I don't know, I still haven't really worked with it that much, so I've got to leave that open. Like, there's some interesting ideas in here. I'm just not yet, and there's no pictures of the card, which I don't like. I love seeing the card in there because... not that you can always see it, but particularly in the rock pool ones, you can see the big image, and I love that. Whereas here you've got no image at all, and I'm quite a visual person, so that for me is a bit of a drawback. The cardstock is quite a nice cardstock. It's got that semi-matte sort of look about it. The back of the card is, you know, that's okay. But the images themselves... I found a little bit like the animal deck ones, which I wasn't that impressed with. I think these might grow on me like the animals did. But at this point, I've used them a couple of times and I've found them to be quite good actually. But when I was reading the guidebook and looking through the cards, I was kind of a little bit underwhelmed. So I don't want to judge them too much yet because, like I said, I haven't used them that much. But they're not as, I don't particularly like the imagery and things as much as I do with those old-fashioned Colette Baron Reid cards. These to me feel a bit shallower. Yeah, and there just doesn't seem to be enough there in the imagery, which is a little bit disappointing. But as I said, I have used them and I found them to be... you know, to be quite easy to use, but I just don't know if they're going to be my favourites like a lot of her other ones are, and that's okay because they don't all have to be. But yeah, I don't know, they don't have the depth for me, and that, like I said, I haven't used them that much, but that's my initial take on those ones. So here we have another really old... another one when I was extremely anxious, and I Can Do It cards by Louise Hay, a 60-card deck. And like I said before, Louise Hay was someone who was very helpful. The energy of these intentions. I deserve the best and I accept the best now. At this very moment, enormous wealth and power are available to me. I choose to feel worthy and deserving. And if you've never encountered Louise Hay, because it's an older sort of new age type, or she is someone who's passed now, but she is responsible for Hay House, so she's left an amazing legacy, and her work is fabulous, if a bit dated. And her book, whatever, the Heal Yourself or Heal Your Life book, again, I used to read that every single night, and it helped me with my anxiety. So, there's something that I'm hanging on to. Sacred Spirit Reading Cards by Anna Stark. And I really like Anna Stark's cards, the cards before I showed you, the Sacred Power Reading Cards, I absolutely adore. These cards are more challenging for me. And I think, I don't know why that really is. They're very, very similar. But I think that the themes that Anna explores in these ones are a bit darker, or the imagery and the artwork is darker. And I find, therefore, that they've got a very specific purpose, but it's not a general one. That I do use them in quite a lot. I've used them a lot, actually. But they do have that, that sort of shadow work side. And I think I wasn't expecting that when I bought them. I think that was probably the most sort of, that it was a challenge for me because I wasn't expecting it. However, I think that the concepts and the things that she explores in these cards are actually really great. That it's just taken me some time to find a happy place with these cards, I suppose, is what I want to say. And that's my stuff, not the cards. But yeah, I think the imagery in these cards is just that sort of the darker, more shadowy, except that card, obviously, because it's bright as. But I do use them all the time in my readings. And if you're watching my pick a card readings, you will see them all the time. And as with all the rock pool, you get a fabulous guidebook. Love rock pool decks for that reason. Their guidebooks are fabulous with full colour. And, really nice paper that you're on here, none of that cheap stuff. So beautiful, beautiful deck to use. Again, with those sort of more shadowy elements. And I think we're coming up to my last deck, which I'm kind of amazed about, because it kind of just been on a journey, I suppose. It's taken longer than I thought, that's for sure. And here we have another rock pool deck with Cheryl and Darcy. The beautiful Cheryl and Darcy, artist and teacher, environmental artist, flower therapist and teacher. And I follow Sherilyn on social media, and I love watching the things she does. And like I said before, with her Flowers of the Night Oracle deck, love that deck. And this is a newer one for me, the Australian Wildflower reading cards. And in lockdown in Australia, I have been studying Australian bushflower essences. So these cards for me are really lovely because they are deepening my knowledge of Australian bushflowers. There isn't any colour inside these images, but you do get the full-sized image. And I'm a bit slow to work with these cards in particular, but maybe that's because I've got so many cards now. So the back of the cards is kind of, I think these cards are actually one of her first. I think they're before the other deck that I showed you before. And it shows a flannel flower on the back. The imagery is beautiful. I really enjoy it. I enjoy working with it. Lots of beautiful colours. Again, this is her artwork, and she's really very attuned to and into flower medicine, or, not just flower medicine, sorry, herbal, natural, gosh, my words are not coming out at all. She's a botanical artist, environmental and botanical and flower therapist. So, these are the things that she loves, and she loves gardening, and all this sort of stuff comes through. I'm still slowly working with these cards. I suppose that's how I want to say it. But I do love them, and I will continue to work with them and, get better understanding of them because some of these images, and like her other decks, there's the connection is one that you have to build over time or deepen. It's not, you can't just, I did just take them out and just start with them, but it feels like I don't want to just do that. It feels like I want to deepen with them, and so that will happen over time. But yeah, some beautiful imagery again from someone who has created the artwork, and then the meanings behind them, and works with flowers big time. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I have loved doing this. I've found it really enjoyable. There'll be timestamps all the way through so that you can jump ahead to things that you might be interested, because this has actually gone on way longer than I thought it would. I do 2 picky card readings each week, although I'm going to start peppering them up with unboxing or, other things, I think, because this has brought me a lot of joy and I want to continue. If you subscribe to my channel, you go in the draw to win a 30-minute private reading with me. So if you love oracle cards and oracle readings, then please subscribe for your chance to win. Please like this video if you've enjoyed it, share it with family and friends, and please comment below if there are any that you've seen today that you want to get in your collection, or if there's something that I have, that you think I'm really missing from my collection. I'd really love to hear what you've got to say. Thanks for joining me today. So looking forward to seeing you again in the next video. Thanks. Bye.